What's going on my Real Sharks and YouTube? It's Rob, Steve, and Lucas Maximus on the Real Sharks podcast. And today we're going to be talking about a very special kind of movie, a movie of the fourth kind. That's right, we're actually going to be talking about alien abduction films. Not the fake kind, no. We're going to actually be talking about a genre of movies that's actually been going on now for quite some time, actually. And it's gotten pretty big. In fact, when we were doing the research for this subject, I didn't actually realize how many there actually are. Also, and how much crap a lot of them are. So this is going to be basically the Real Sharks' best alien abduction films. So the first movie that actually kicked off this genre was actually called the Interrupted Journey, the Betty and Barney Hill story, which
Mhm.
was the first recorded case of alien abductions in the United States.
It's true.
This is one that I will say it's at the bottom of the list, but it is the first account, I guess you can say, of this whole genre of films. I mean, it
Yeah.
has James Earl Jones in it. But what was interesting about this whole one too, unlike some of the other films we're going to be discussing, there's actually a lot of evidence to this alien abduction case. Uh,
hmm
that's
Yeah.
a that's for another episode or another story. That's another story for another time. Uh, but it's definitely an interesting film. I think it really captured the genre in which we're talking about right now because, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not. It's probably the most PG-13 of all these films in which we're going to talk about
hmm
because some of them are actually really horrific. And then some of these, like this one, for example, is just about a moment in time, almost like a documentary, so to speak, but made for TV. But like I said, had James Earl Jones in it, one of his first one of his first works, and not bad, not a bad TV movie. I mean, definitely still creepy though. Definitely still captures that eeriness of an alien abduction film.
Yeah, it was. You know what was kind of weird? You had Estelle Pardons as his wife. You know what I mean? I kind of felt like that was a little, even though it was in '75, it was a little weird. Did you kind of feel like it was a little groundbreaking for its time too? Kind of having like an interracial couple, and then being in this like
Well,
paranormal
that's what they
activities type
I
thing.
mean, Benny and they were an interracial couple, which is
Yeah,
an interesting aspect when you kind of think about this is the 1950s, and like a lot of people, and to a certain degree, and of course, different different time for a podcast, but it's like some could say that the early testimony was largely disregarded because of them being an interracial couple in the 1950s. Um, so that's its own thing, but yeah, definitely for the 70s. So
It's
okay.
definitely something that should be mentioned when you mention this film. It's a little weird, and then like Rob said, the whole thing with how they look too was kind of very superficial for the time. Of like, if you're talking aliens, you're talking Twilight Zone, yeah, like that
yeah.
totally. So like they all had that kind of weird same look at the
Bubble
time.
eyes, yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
But you know what? I also want to point out too, and I'm not taking away from any real abduction cases or anybody who does suffer from any kind of case like that, but I'm just going to say this kind of kicked off a pattern, which is in this genre too, which we'll also see. But I actually want to move into a movie from 2020 that I watched. Very interesting film starring Alison Brie called Horse Girl. Have you guys heard of this film?
I've heard of the movie. I've never
Yeah.
seen it. So yeah, but I know that it was Alison Brie.
Interesting film. So basically, it's about a girl named Sarah who's like a socially kind of awkward woman, and she has a lot of like she's just a normal girl, loves arts and crafts and especially horses. And this film sounds like kind of like this independent film on some girl that's gonna like love horses, but it's
hmm
absolutely not. It's actually about this girl suffering through these lucid dreams, and they're starting to like affect her real life. But what's crazy is this film is said to not be an abduction film, but it totally is to anyone who's watched it because
hmm
you have the white rooms with the entities like performing things like performing, autopsies, whatever you want to say, some kind of supernatural thing on them. And this movie, I thought for what I heard about it, because I was kind of watching it going, and it was really put as that. Is it a psychological breakdown, like of a woman, is she like going crazy, or is this a real like film about a woman having an alien abduction? And it was very interesting, and I actually thought it was pretty good. I was very surprised. The only thing that kind of threw me off of it was was the whole idea of that it's supposed to be kind of a almost time jump, almost psychological, almost like kind of
Yeah.
thriller, but
Yeah.
it was a clear abduction film with the
So,
premise of missing time.
mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I saw this film too, and just kind of watching it straight through with it not really knowing too much about it, it was weird. It didn't feel like an alien abduction film at first because it was so psychedelic with what she was experiencing.
Right.
Like you know what I mean. So I kind of get the vibe of like this could be an alien abduction because it's like why would they want you to know you're working on them, right? And I kind of feel like this ties in with alien abductions because all the information that we have with alien abductions are people that go through,
You had
like you
little
said,
entities going
yeah, yeah,
and doing, and
right,
she was in like a
yeah.
white room,
She was
but
in a
then
white
they
room.
present it as like, oh, she might be crazy, and then I'm like, what,
But that's
what?
how it always is, though. People are
Right.
usually presumed crazy, and they always have those little things, like you said, Rob, the little entities that make it an alien abduction room. Blinding white room, right? Which is white
At
light.
night. At
At
night.
night, at night, she's going crazy at like crazier times. That's always something that has to deal with either paranormal stuff or alien abductions, right? They always like have like flashbacks to some like, oh my god, was I going through
Missing
some
time.
stuff? Right, yeah. So like definitely it has the elements there in this film for sure.
I thought it was actually pretty good. I think it was one of the better films out of the genre that we're talking about, the abduction genre.
Yeah.
Um, I thought it was really good actually. I was impressed. I was actually impressed. But at times it did drag a hell of a lot to get to the point. So another film I wanted to bring up in this alien genre or alien abduction genre, I want to say, is Honeymoon 2014.
Yes.
This film was very interesting. Had Rose Leslie in it as B, and Harry Treadway. Basically, if you don't know who Rose Leslie is, she's from Game of Thrones. So that's for all you Game of Thrones nerds out there. But this film was interesting. Um, how can I describe this one? Again, one of the better films. I just want to mention to all our listeners the ones we're mentioning here are the ones that are basically the best ones.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of these movies. But basically, this one was interesting
It was good.
because yes and no. I thought it was good, yes and no. For example, okay, I've never seen an abduction film with such a strong love premise to it. I mean, there was some strong, intense, you know, sex scenes. Um, it was a very strong love movie. I mean, if you were to pop in on this film in the beginning, you might get confused on what it's actually about. And it was actually directed by Leah Janek, and you'd actually kind of get confused on what kind of film this is about because it's very heavily in the almost I want to say romance genre in the beginning. I mean, there's a lot of intense emotional scenes, beautiful scenery, everything you could have for a metaphoric love film. And then it gets into the thriller aspect, which is done very well. Um, I mean, it really plays into this genre differently. Among all the abduction films that kind of trend the same way and kind of make the same points to make sure
Mm.
you know that it's abduction film,
Yeah.
this one kind of goes a different direction in the sense of like it's about like her losing her memory and she can't remember who she is, and then the people she
Mm.
knows is actually involved in this whole abduction phenomenon with her. And I say abduction too very loosely because you don't really see any aliens like you do in the rest of these films. You just see entities. But here's my problem with this film. As we're continuing on, it was like watching a running back playing football 1 yard line, and he runs it all the way to the end zone just to fumble it right there at the touchdown. That's what this movie did, because when it gets to some real good stuff where you're finding out what's going on with B, basically he pulls this umbilical cord out of her, and it's like alien baby status, and then she starts rotting away like corpse, and she basically kills him, goes up, or they kill him, whatever you want to say, and she just gets pretty much gangbanged by the aliens.
Scotty.
And I'm not, I'm just kidding, my audience. But the point is, though, I mean, you don't really see what happens, or she literally walks up to the entities, and you just, and she's just sounds like she's torn to pieces. So, what I said was actually kind of less brutal.
Yeah, and there's always, and a lot of alien abduction films play off of that, just because, like,
did you see Honeymoon?
I haven't, but I'm kind of like making another point. But it's just like there's a lot of alien like abduction stories, like the tropes, the mythos of alien abductions. The joke is always about like the anal probe, but like there's always this weird sort of like there's this sexual. There's this weird sexual trauma that seems to always involve alien abduction stories. So and in some cases, whether or not some people actually were abducted or anything, there's always like that weird what's the word? I mean, there's always a very clear allegory to trauma, because it's very, very possible that in many of those cases people were in fact genuinely assaulted and are rewiring their brain to handle it and making the narrative an alien abduction. So yeah, I hope that aliens don't are actually doing the anal probe, because otherwise aliens are going to be canceled, because we can't be
right. Hey, I think they it's funny that you say that with the whole sexual thing, because I'm like, are the aliens really like wanting to know more about human beings, or are they legitimately just horny and they're using Earth as like a porn shop?
Breeding sow.
Breeding. Yeah, because for this movie with Honeymoon, it was I liked it personally because it was so, again, just like the UFO incident, like we were just talking about with James Earl Jones with the couple. This kind of went with the new age, like they're obviously this couple lovey-dovey. They wanted to establish the scenes with the sex scenes, like Rob was saying, with the like visceral stuff, and then she kept the director kept with like you said, like pulling the like weird slime umbilical cord type of thing out of her, and then like Rob said, like as soon as she does that, she kind of like turns into this pseudo zombie. Her face was like weird, and she had like peely skin, and it just makes you think like she can't handle this like being that was inside of her, that it wasn't a human being, right? That's what I got out of it. And then she kind of just walks towards the camera, and then like someone shines a flashlight in her face, right? Which, it's like, there it is again, the trope of the blinding white light, which is always used, right? She's either being stopped by the police or she's being abducted by aliens, or both of them. You know what I mean? So I don't. There's always that kind of underlying of couples, passionate love scenes, really and normal. Aliens being intrigued by that. And there's always, we need to impregnate the woman with with our seed or whatever, like that, and see how it goes. Alien spawns, and then like it always ends horribly.
So we're on our way
with
to the cabin.
like
This
they to
trip
go
is obviously
plan failed to kill them both, or she's alive, let's use her. You know what I mean?
I don't know what happened.
That type of deal.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Interesting.
Honestly.
So here's another one that I want to mention as well. This one is kind of, again, on the lower totem pole. I was actually looking for this film for a moment because I couldn't find it. I just remembered what it was about, and that was Absence, 2013. Now, there is plenty of lost footage alien abduction films out there, my audience, but let me just tell you what, most of them suck really bad, and a lot of them were terrible. This one, if you must go for that lost footage, pure lost footage film, this is the film for you. This movie is basically about a woman and her boyfriend, again,
What are we gonna do,
who
man?
have
I don't
a
know, right? I don't
unborn
know.
baby
Stop.
that is actually
Hey,
abducted.
baby, we're going home.
And
Don't
I'm
leave
sure
me.
it might be crazy to some of you naysayers or skeptics or, people who don't believe in this, who don't like this genre, but this is actually something that does happen in the UFO community, something that is reported. So the actual premise of the fear is there, I guess you could say, or the mystery is there. So it has one good hell of a end scene where basically they're trying to get away, and this car is hit by a beam of light, and just I have to say I think the special effects were impressive. Do I think this movie is great by any means? Do I think it deserves on a top 10 alien list of all time? No, but I actually found it to be impressive in its own right, and if you must watch a lost footage film, this is the one for you.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you
Totally
guys see
agree.
that one?
Yes.
Which one?
Absence,
Absence. No.
2013.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so let's move into this one then, because let's move into this next one. This next one is, of course, very popular. It's one of the most popular ones we can actually talk about, and I gotta say, it is one of the most popular and one I probably hate the most. Uh, 2009's The Fourth Kind,
Oh.
and
Oh yeah.
this starred Mila Jovovich, Will Patton, Corey Johnson, Hakeem K. Kazim, um, Enzo Clinty. Okay, so basically, it's a thriller, and it's about the mystery is actually real. Again, most of these films have real premises of things that really happened. This one is about the mystery in Alaska, where one town was seeing a lot of disappearances, and it's about the town therapist basically recounting through, of course, hypnotic therapy, which again, or hypnotic regression, which again is something experienced in the UFO community that they do use. And basically, all these people recount, and she even gets kind of taken into the mystery itself, into the the abduction phenomenon itself. And it was directed by Olantud Osami, which sorry if I butchered that. Okay, so the fourth kind I think is good to a degree. And while I say that, okay, first of all, again, I hate when movies try to do the mockumentary. And this is different from found footage. This is mockumentary. This is where they try to fool the audience or fool you, my audience, into thinking this is something that is real.
This is
You know, they
Hollywood right here.
this is Hollywood, but it's just like the mermaids. Animal Planet's mermaids, where they splice in scientists or people that have, it says degree under their name, and you think this is a real person, or they use some kind of blur on people's faces to make you think this is some real cover up or some real found footage. It's not. The story behind it, though, is true. If you want to research that, you're more than welcome to, my audience. But we're here to talk about the film itself. So the fourth kind. Um, I think is, like I said, good until you get halfway through the film, and then it becomes almost paranormal. And I really love the scene, for example, and I've told Steve about this off air. It just makes me laugh. It
It's
tickles, it
hilarious.
tickles me pink. And that's when they're talking on the sofa, and the guy's like having the hypnotic regression, and then all of a sudden it's just like he's like, and then just, and it floats up off the chair, and it just looks like he's taking some alien dong. That's all I really like. He's on some kind, you know, some kind of machine where they're lifting him up and just.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember
yeah.
too, like the trailer. They tried to pass it off as like a found footage, or even like, frankly, they tried to even try to make you feel like this is It was practically a documentary, and you see this shit, and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
they used that guy and him screaming in every single one of the trailers. I remember, like, this is gonna sell people. This guy freaking out, and then obviously, like Rob said, the levitation is where the film lost me. When the guy was
Me too.
levitating in front of me, like, just like what? Like you said, Rob. Then it just became like a ghost type of thing. I'm like, is our ghost now involved? It was just ridiculous. I was gonna be like, dude, is there gonna be like some ectoplasm coming out of this dude's mouth or anus or
Right.
something like that? That's what it felt like that was gonna happen. I was just like, all
Like
right,
exorcism, like alien exorcism almost. That's what it seemed like.
right,
Like all of a
definitely.
sudden she's like, the power of Christ compels you.
Dude, that's still too funny though. That just watch the film just for that guy screaming.
It's bad. It's really it's so bad. And what's interesting too is like Luke said, they try to pass it off like a documentary, which to me just pisses you off just all the more. And then it even tried to throw some ancient alien stuff in there for the time when it was popular, which is 2009. So this is when Ancient Aliens was getting going, and they try to throw that the aliens were speaking Anunnaki and shit like that. They were speaking ancient Sumerian, and that too. And then when the Mila Jovovich gets involved with the aliens itself, and then they're going in there and taking her, and like even though they have time to be like inside their fucking camera, whatever. I guess that's the time they have. But the fourth kind, I personally think is one of the worst abduction films, but it is favored by a lot of people, so that's why it's on this list. It has its moments. It's like I believe me and Luke once said it's like Terminator 3. It has its moments.
So, like, sending like your closing arguments, do you think that it's enhanced the people who really don't know anything about alien abductions
It's,
at all? Because like
this
it was
this one
a
really
AAA film.
yeah this one really kind of broke the mold with with alien films. I mean, I don't recall a film that was as popular as alien abduction film that was as popular as this one when it first came out.
That was a
Uh,
while back, you know.
yeah. Uh, and I haven't seen one. I mean, there was just so much buzz around the film because it was a mockumentary type movie. So, yeah. But we're gonna move on into another one that I think is absolutely ridiculous. But it's on this list, and we have to mention it because we know all you alien fanatics out there and movie fanatics, you would absolutely kill us if we didn't bring this one up. And I know Luke especially is gonna love this one because he does one of the best Christopher Walken impressions I've ever heard.
Okay.
And this is gonna be Communion, 1989. This film is actually based on a book with the same name by Whitley Strieber. Probably a fucking liar. I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest with everybody. I mean, he's said some pretty outlandish things when it comes to like the Alien Interview documentary. If you haven't seen it or don't know what I'm talking about, or you do, you're a true Alien fan or Alien UFO fan, I should say, a ufologist. Um, this movie itself is it's ridiculous. It was released on November 10th, 1989. The director Philip Mora made it. Um, what can I say about this one? Again, typical alien genre. Guys experiencing a weird day. Then at night, sees this alien just kind of peeking around the corner at him. And then all of a sudden, before he knows it, and I know Steve can attest to this, it is one of the most funniest scenes. The alien like goes and pierces his fucking head with some kind of like device, and he's abducted. You know, crazy stuff happens. Typical abduction film, but then of course there's the whole hypnotic regression and the whole people not believing him about his experience, and the abductions are continuing in the film, and everyone thinking is Christopher Walken's going mad. Luke, hit us with a Christopher Walken impression about aliens.
Okay. I once I was abducted by aliens, and and well, not to mince words, they probed me. You would assume many people assume it is the anus, but human urethra is nightmarishly elastic.
So so this is that's Communion in a nutshell. I'm just kidding. But for real, Communion is one of those interesting films. For a while it was a top placeholder of abduction films. One of the very few actually that existed. But you know, just go. Don't listen. Don't take it from us, our audience. Watch this one if you're
Yeah.
obsessed with the alien genre and you want to see it because you'll know what we're talking about. Especially when it gets into the abduction phenomenon itself. I mean,
Uh-huh.
Steve, did you finally see the leprechauns?
Ugh,
The guys in like
yes.
that look like hooded, like woodland
Hooded
men.
figures.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they
I
brought some
did.
kind of cannon in his house.
They did. Yeah.
It's
Dude, man,
a weird film.
I gotta tell you, man, like it could just be nostalgia because again, this is one of those films I saw as a kid. You know what I mean? My dad rented it, scared the shit out of me. Um, I don't know, man. Watching it now as an adult, I mean, obviously it's ridiculous, right? But
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it adds a little bit to it because yeah, he totally like looking at that scene where he just like shoots him in the forehead with that like blinding light, which again is a big trope, by the way. As funny as that is another one of those like ET type of like, yeah, like puts it right in his. I mean, like it's one of those Men in Black type of deals, right? So it's another one of those like the alien has the big bubbly eye, you know what I mean, type of thing. He's very gaunt, but I don't know. It's just do aliens go after weird couples and Christopher Walken figures only? Like it feels like that's
Possibly.
what they go for.
I I
They're
was
just
thinking
like,
about
where's Christopher
how
Walken?
I was thinking about there was I forget what comedian it was. It might have been a bunch of them, but somebody was talking about how like it's possible that that aliens are coming down here because and they're specifically going after like weirdos because the aliens are also weirdos, or like because if the aliens are like advanced beings, you know, we would probably be much less evolved compared to them. So these aliens could just be the equivalent of like going out into like, you know, the out into the rural country and fucking an animal. Like that's what we like. Just like how somebody out here would try to find like a deer and have sex with it, we would. The
Wow.
aliens are like, oh, let's
I
try.
took that metaphor totally different. I thought you were going for this idea of like maybe aliens are like nerds and geeks, and they were like, well, if we abduct the fucking weirdos and the nerds and geeks, no one will believe them because no one
No,
ever believed
yeah,
us.
that could be another thing, but yeah, I think it's more like they're just coming out. They're like, yeah, I definitely want to fuck a human.
It's only the dummies. So the aliens that human beings have ever seen in every type of encounter are the dumb aliens.
The dumb
Because all the
aliens.
smart ones are like, we will never leave our planet.
That's
Yeah.
great. This is definitely going to be on behind the scenes. All right, so here's the next one that we're going to mention. So the next one on this that we would like to mention is one of the, no, again one of the more popular films. I believe one of the better ones too. It's actually kind of taken some hits over the years, which has kind of rated it down. Is Fire in the Sky, 1993. Uh, it's about Travis Walton, who was a logger in Snowflake, Arizona, who basically him and his team encounter some kind of spaceship in the middle of the woods, and basically Travis Walton is hit with a beam. His friends take off. They think he's dead, and the film itself is really interesting because you have his friends who are being investigated for murder, which really happened. So this is a story that really happened. So everyone thought they murdered him, and he was gone for 6 days. And when they found him, he was naked, malnourished, and again, he didn't have hypnotic regression in this movie, though. He had just basically seizures where he remembered the events, and they're pretty frightening. This is one of the more frightening alien abduction films. Definitely one that really, really started the horror aspect of it because that abduction scene where he is in the ship comes across a guy who's basically been gutted out, and when they're dragging him through the hallways of the ship, there's, you know, glasses and old books, and it's really, really frightening. Um, Interesting encounter based again off his book. However, here's where we get to the downfall of this film, which was actually directed by Robert Lieberman. I should say it was actually released in March. It was released March 12th, 1993. Had a budget of 15 million, box office 19.9 million domestically, which is not good. But basically, the film itself, though, yeah, it is what it is. I think it's good. One of the better stories where, there's that aspect of almost the murder mystery, like, oh, well, did they murder him? And, did they murder him? Did they actually hide his body? Because throughout the film, people are ridiculing them, people are persecuting them, they take lie detector tests, and then when they find him, people think they made the whole thing up. But this is where the downfall of the movie kind of comes. It's not really based on his account. Like there's some more dramatization, more horror aspect added to the movie to make it more frightening. In fact, in Travis Walton's book, he was like, after all that initial stuff, the aliens were pretty cool.
Interesting. That's
Um,
good on them. And yeah, and I guess there's also the aspect of like if you show that you do kind of like it gets muddy because then like what is kind of the point of the movie then? Because obviously 1993 is when I feel like obviously it's been around since like the 50s with Roswell. I feel like the 90s was where the UFO stuff like really kicked into high gear with X-Files, with the black helicopters, with the increase of like independent media, like and especially like tabloids and all that. UFO sightings just like really spiked up, and people became kind of like like what whether they were real. So it's this kind of movie is always because you can kind of like see like, oh, what do you guys think? But at some point, like obviously the director has to have a choice in this matter too. There has to be in his mind like what is it? So, and especially if it's making a movie, it's even if it's fictionalized, at some point you have to make the decision of like, is it real or not? And that's always a weird balance to draw, especially if you leave it on that inconclusive, like, could be real, could be fake. But
right, and like I said, Fire in the Sky, even though it's taken a lot of hits over the years, I still think for any avid watcher of this genre or who's looking to get into this genre, this is definitely one to watch. Mostly because it's about a time and point in history too. It's actually a historical movie, you could even point out and say. Now, before we move on to Dark Skies, I want to mention Night Skies. 2007's Night Skies. This is an interesting little, I would say it's a TV film, but it's actually a B movie. Had AJ Cook in it, Ashley Peldon, Jason Connery, Joseph Sorka. If you don't know any of those names, that's okay, because this is a very B movie based on, it starts out with this idea of the Phoenix Lights. This is supposedly, again, which I'm going to get to in a minute, my audience, one of the most weirdest kind of switches for characters I've ever seen. So basically, it's supposed to take place before the Phoenix Light happens. You have basically 5 friends who are out to Las Vegas, and they come across this guy who's basically out there hunting aliens. But basically, spoilers, the movie ends with this guy being the one left alive. So you're like, how does he have the footage of what happened?
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
But this one is, I have to say, it's again a B movie, but one of the better ones out there. Impressive on the horror aspect and basically special effects, not on the alien. I mean, well, the aliens are actually pretty decent. The
Yeah.
special effects are decent.
It's pretty
But
good.
again, this movie is, again, like you guys were saying, the genre of taking the baby out, abducting the baby. But unlike some of the other ones, the guy that ends up, living in the end, he shoots the girl in the head on the ship, and the aliens are all like, "Fuck no, you just took our incubator away," Ugh.
Mm.
So that one, so Night Skies, I actually do recommend. This is one of the better of the genre. What do you guys feel about Night Skies? Or Steve, what do you feel about Night Skies?
Yeah, man. I think you hit the nail on the head with this one. I think Night Skies kind of introduced more of the definite horrors that people had from the night. So like Luke was saying about the 90s bringing about the interest in alien abductions, which is completely true. X-Files changed the game, right? Obviously, is what we know of just believing in aliens and alien abductions. And then in the 2010s kind of like reintroduced it to the horror aspect of like, what would it mean to you if you got abducted, or your friends, how would you deal with it? But Night Skies, I feel like, is more so just like a fun, more so to the
Yeah.
aspects. I didn't really take it too serious, but I also wasn't like bored or felt like it was dumb. It had really good effects. Just like you said, Rob, like right away, you debunked the film like within the first 3 minutes of this review, saying like, if he's the last one alive, how did he get the whole footage of this everything happening? It didn't make any sense, but I don't think it is. I don't think it's supposed to make sense. I think it's supposed to be the premise of like what aliens could do rather than based off of something that, actually happened.
Right. All right. And we're going to actually move on to the special show poll and show question here. The poll will actually be on our Twitter, everybody. And that question is E.T. an alien abduction film? Because they did abduct E.T.
Oh my God.
The government came and took him, so I would technically say that's an alien abduction film, my audience. I mean, I know some of you are going to dispute that, but I'm not sure you're right. All right, so
Human beings can be aliens.
moving on to what I would say is probably the strongest and the most terrifying of this genre that we can speak of. I mean, there is a lot of films on this list that are terrifying, but this one to me is one of a quintessential horror too. For being PG-13, I mean, it's absolutely gripping and terrifying, and that's Dark Skies 2013, starring Kerry Russell, Dakota Gio, Josh Hamilton, J.K. Simmons, Caden Rocket, Annie Thurman. This film has every single quintessential trope to abductions and the abduction phenomenon that is happening in it. I mean, I could go on for a while about how good the horror aspect of this film is. It's one of those films that will show you the same scene repeatedly to switch it out on you on the end, and it is terrifying when you get too used to the scene. I mean, it's a quick scene, a quick jolt, but the thriller aspect of it, including the twist at the end of the film, spoiler, it's not the one kid, it's the one older kid, not the little kid, but the little kid gets taken away and you never see him again, which is something that has happened in the UFO and alien abduction phenomenon. A member of a family gets taken and you never see him again. Murder, maybe. That's not what we're talking about. It's another subject for another time. But in this film, it is talking about how family members go missing. And that is the end of the film itself, where everyone is starting to think this family is going crazy. They're doing something to their kids. But realistically, they're experiencing an abduction phenomenon like you've never really seen before. And it is a very, very scary film. Like I said, I think it's the strongest of the abduction genre. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, Dark Skies. Dude, this one was weird. It was so like, it was just unsettling to begin with, man. It was super dark in the film. Just the tone of the, and then like, I don't know, it was just hard. I bet for me and Rob, just because of the kids being involved and they weren't really attacking
Very
adults
uncomfortable
this time.
movie. The
They were,
alarms,
yeah,
the
dude.
screams.
Yeah, dude. And this isn't like the fourth, kind like we were talking about with this scream. Like these screams were like blood curdling, like terrified screams, and it just brung up the realization, like, oh shit, like if you were being abducted by an actual alien, you wouldn't be, yelling for help. You'd be screaming for your life.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of this film, Luke?
I think, well, one thing that is the thing that strikes me is this is essentially like a demon possession movie. This is a haunted house movie, but it's like it's not a ghost, it's not a demon,
Right.
alien, and so I think that's an interesting aspect of it. I think there would have been. I'm always more I was kind of intrigued by that idea of like how people think the the family side of things. I think that is a really interesting aspect about this family that's dealing with this with this phenomena, and everybody else thinks they're crazy, and it's leading to like really bad things in their life. So at the same time, while people are like closing in on them, like the people around them, not only are people not being supportive, but they're actively perhaps like trying to make their lives even worse because they think they're crazy.
Right.
It's upsetting, and it kind of, I think there is something to think about, like from people who have experienced these phenomena, alien abductions, whether you believe in them or not, the people who are involved with this, clearly have experienced something profoundly fucked up. I remember watching, and I can't even remember it, and I wanted to bring it up earlier, but there was a Roswell like a TV special that was hosted by Commander Riker, the actor who played Commander Riker, and the testimony from these people is like incredibly fucked up, because it's like we saw these aliens, and then a bunch of like police officers and government agents came out there to say, if you say anything, if you start saying that these are aliens, we're going to kill you and every one of your family members. Whether or not that testimony is right, whether they're making that shit up, that is horrifying. That's crazy. That, and you can imagine that people are dealing with, and you can imagine what they're dealing with right now. The end of the day, whether they're crazy or not, there's still people that are going through some severely messed up situation. So
Right. And then we also had Steve help me out here. It was VHS 2 was the other. This one had while it wasn't fully about alien abductions,
it's an anthology, right? So
yes, there is
Yeah.
actually a story in it that is actually decent.
Pretty decent. It's okay. Alright.
I think the special effects are okay. Beyond that, I wouldn't give it another look, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'd give it a thumbs up if you wouldn't just have something with some aliens in it,
Any other films you guys want to mention?
Well, there's some honorable mentions we can talk about that have kind of lended their hand into it. Proximity, that just came out, I think last year. I gave this one a whirl. I did not finish it. I will let everybody know. It was just okay. It wasn't
Kind of the
really
reverse.
doing a
It's kind of
lot.
the reverse film. It's
Yeah,
basically about a man who wants to expose the truth that he was abducted, not running from it like the other
not
films.
running from
So
it.
imagine
Yeah,
this genre reversed.
and the film just kind of didn't work in that aspect. I think it doesn't work when someone's trying to tell people like crying wolf, like, no, this is what happened literally, and people aren't believing. Rather, it's like, well, if it was reversed, like we saw it happening, I don't know. It was just kind of weird. The tone of it was off. It didn't have like a Dark Skies, that very, very uneasy edge to it. It was very, very just like showy, which kind of took it away from me. Like, okay, this is just for films, rather than like something like that, or even just other films that have happened over it, with the Phoenix incident. I don't know if you guys saw that one as well. I saw that.
Nah.
It's another one of those, like, hey, let's make an alien abduction film just because of money, and it was based off of the Arizona situation again. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like with these movies, they're okay if you want to see something, but they're honorable mention. Before we leave, though, there is one episode of a television show that actually changed the concepts of what aliens are to the public and society as a whole, and that would be the legendary show The Twilight Zone's episode 24 of season 3, To Serve Man. Has anybody seen that episode?
I fucking love that episode. Oh
Okay, it's
my
one of the
God.
greatest.
May I take this over here? Let me grab the
Yeah,
reins. For those of you
yeah,
who
go ahead.
I love the Twilight Zone. For those of you who have never seen To Serve Man, it is about basically an alien race that comes down to Earth, and basically they go, "All right, everybody, the human race will no longer have any problems. We're gonna feed you, make sure there's no more wars, make sure you guys have everything you ever need," and basically aliens change society, and people they love humans, and basically they're starting to take humans back to their planet. And there's a man and a woman. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They find a book, and the book is called To Serve Man. And basically, they're trying to decipher this book. And towards the end, when the guy is getting on the ship, she's like,
The rest of the book. It's a cookbook.
he's on the ship on their way, and they're just like, you need to eat, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
fattened up. I wish I could have popped into that famous writer Alfred Hitchcock's mind right there, because when she goes, "It's a cookbook, it's a cookbook," I wish she would just had the main character go, "Oh shit!"
Oh fuck!
Right?
Like he kind of did, right? But the aliens
Because
snatched him up before he could have like a reaction. He kind of was just like, "Wait, what?" And they were like pushing him into the ship. So
yes, that
can't
is
really
a
say anything.
great episode.
Yeah,
All
definitely.
all right, our real sharks. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode from the fourth kind, um, alien abduction genre. I am your host, Rob, with Stephen Lucas Maximus,
Okay.
and we're gonna beam out of here.